What's up, everyone, and welcome back. We're going to talk today about something very different than you might expect. You might be like, wait, what is this? What is this? You're going to talk about Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, and the answer is yes. Now, you might think, like, based on the stuff that I've uploaded up to this point, it'd be like, why would you watch a show like this? And it's really a simple story when it comes down to it. I caught this in the back end of its original simuldub run on Funimation and around, I think, the end of March, early April. I think like 9 episodes had come out at that point, or 10 when I'd first caught it. And I just finished watching Hunter x Hunter, and for the people who haven't seen Hunter x Hunter, it's a very hard watch, and I just wanted something that was like on the other end of the spectrum that I could just easily absorb. And I saw that this show was like blowing up, and it was like a show that a lot of people were really like invested in. Even people who hated slice of life shows were like, this show is great. And I was like, I'll give it a check out. And I watched the first 9 episodes or 8 episodes, whatever was available, in like a day. And this show was so fun. It was just like one of those shows that like I got super into because it wasn't a super like compelling show from an action standpoint or from a storyline, because there's not really a whole lot story-wise that goes on. There is character development and there's things like that, and there is a plot to the series, but overall it's not a show that's driven by its plot or driven by action. It was a show that was just a lot of short things you could drop, you could pick it up, you could watch it whenever you wanted, and that was what I liked about the show. And I've actually rewatched it, I think, once all the way through since then, but I'd never seen the sub before I watched this OVA, so it was a little weird of an adjustment, but it actually was really nice because a lot of the voices are very similar in the dub and the sub. So with that, a little bit of introduction out of the way, let's talk about the recently released OVA slash episode 14 that people are calling it. It came out about a week ago, but it wasn't subbed until I think Sunday was the 24th, whatever day it was subbed. It was subbed like Saturday, Sunday, Monday, so one of those days. I didn't find the time to actually sit down and watch it until just today, the 26th, which is Tuesday. And I gotta say, I didn't expect this to actually be as good as it was. I thought that usually OVAs have this tendency to be a little bit lower in quality, to be kind of a knockoff version of what you loved, based on different ones that I've seen in the past. It usually tends to be the case. But I loved this OVA. I thought this was a really good, well done episode. We'll call it an episode. We'll probably go back and forth between the two terms throughout this video. But I really enjoyed this episode, and I thought that it was a lot more in vein of like the first 12 episodes of the original run of the show. So for those of you that haven't seen it, this show was a slice of life show. It really had this kind of formula for the first about 12 episodes. It was usually a story or 2 stories you would go through. It would be lighthearted, you could absorb the plot, there was character development, all these things. And then episode 13 was this huge dramatic change. It turned into a big action episode with a big fight, a lot of dark dialogue. It was very not comedy. It was super dramatic, and it felt like a complete tonal shift from where the series had been up to that point. So that was why I actually despised the episode, and I've come to the point where I accept it, but it was just like we were being stepped on as viewers because it was just so radically different from the first 12, the original run of the series. That episode was like everything, it violated everything that we liked up to that point. So it just felt like, wait, this is like totally not the show that I liked. What is going on here? But I thought this was a lot more in the spirit of the first 12, because even when the series was exploring these dark themes that aren't really meant for comedy, like mortality, like war, broken homes, it was never just a complete tone shift. It always fit within the structure of the episodes, and there's not really a whole lot of discussion like that's super dark or depressing in this episode. Actually, in the original manga chapter of the Hot Springs, there was actually a part where Takia started talking about like all the recent events that were going on, and you want to take a break from that. Like, that wasn't really, at least not in the sub that I watched, it wasn't a prevalent theme. They kind of toned it down, so it wasn't even like referring to things that had happened like that. It was definitely a more back to the formula kind of episode. It was just a slice of life, kind of lighthearted episode that you could take in pretty easily, as opposed to what episode 13 ended up being. The one thing I will say is that it did definitely feel like it was just 2 halves that were kind of loosely connected at certain points, and that was a convention that some episodes of the anime use. Like the Comiket episode originally was like half beach, half Comiket, and there were a couple other episodes that did this as well. And that's not necessarily a bad thing in my opinion, though, because it stopped things from getting way too stretched out, which was a concept that the creators of this anime really understood really well. Sometimes it's hard for when you're within the structure of adapting a manga to an anime, you kind of want to stretch things out to a full episode that's one concept. But this is a series where the chapters are very loosely connected. It usually just covers one story, and they've always done a good job of making it not super stretched out. Just fit it within this little block, and then you can do 2 chapters in an episode, basically, because it's not an overarching story. It's just individual chapters for the most part. I mean, there's certain storylines that aren't, but we can talk about that at a different time. But there was a lot of self-containment in this episode. It wasn't like super stretched out or milked, but there was still time for lots of really fun little moments, like Psycho getting friend-zoned, which was one of my personal favorite moments of the episode, and then Alma trying to make everyone chocolate, which was another really good moment, I thought. With that said, though, there was a connection of the 2 parts, and that was the ending. I thought the ending was a great tie-in, not the ending scene on the train, but with Kobayashi and Toru. I thought that was a really satisfying ending, and it really tied together the 2 parts in a way that a lot of these other episodes really didn't, and it also it gave us more of a satisfactory, between that and the scene on the train at the end, this was a much more satisfying ending, I thought, than episode 13 gave us originally. So, if this was the ending for the entire series, and they don't make another run of episodes, I think I would be completely satisfied with this ending, whereas I really wouldn't have been with just the original 13 episode runs. So, all in all, thought it was a really well done episode. Kind of surprised by how good I thought it was, to be completely honest. I was not really going with super high expectations, just given the history of OVAs and just my past experience with supplemental material as it's framed. This was framed as like a supplemental piece, but it's really like a 14th episode, which is, I see why everybody was calling it the 14th episode. It really is like just an extra episode of the original series. It didn't feel like it was a separate thing at all. It just fit so well with the rest of the series. So I would give it like an 8 or a 7.5. It wasn't like my favorite episode by any stretch, but I definitely thought it was really well done, and it was among like the top half probably of episodes of the series. So that's going to do it for me. Let me know what you guys thought if you did watch it down below. If not, I would definitely recommend going to check out this series. It's pretty easy watch. You can turn it on. You can do other things. Very good series. Anyway, that is going to do it for me. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for more.